What's up guys, it's Colby DeWeese with Chemeperformance. I'm just going to show you what I meal prep, how I meal prep, and how I try to make it a little bit easier for myself. My first meal is super simple. 12 ounces of sweet potato, 4 ounces of broccoli, 8 ounces of 85% grass-fed ground beef. For my second meal, it's a little bit more complicated. It's going to be a salad with onion, green mix, and red bell pepper on top. And then I've also got brown rice and then some of this beef brisket flat cut, which is not typically what I get as far as this beef goes, but we're gonna make do with what we got. The first thing I'm gonna do is preheat the oven to about 375. That's because the sweet potatoes take the longest to cook. Make sure that you get them in first, and that's gonna kind of minimize the time that it takes to prep the rest of the meal. While that's preheating, we're gonna chop up the sweet potato. This is about 48 ounces of sweet potato. It's actually 49, which is just a little bit over the 12 ounces that I have per meal. But because we're cutting the ends off, it's probably going to end up to be about right. As these guys fill up the board, I'll move them over to our baking sheet. I try to slice them as effectively as possible. If you don't kind of go into cutting up a sweet potato, especially one this big with a game plan, you can end up cutting for quite some time. I have 4 servings of sweet potato here, so I'm going to use 4 tablespoons of olive oil on top of them. After that, it's pretty easy and simple what I do. I just throw some salt. I don't worry too much about the quantities of spices that go on to really anything that I eat. A lot of people get worried about salt, but for the most part, most of us are active enough that we're really going to sweat out most of it. And a lot of athletes, especially those who prep their own meals and don't have any added salt, are actually sodium deficient. And sodium is one of the most important electrolytes for a lot of what your body processes, especially when it comes to performing. After I got the spices on there, I kind of just do a little toss with my hands. I lost a couple soldiers. We're definitely down to 48 ounces of sweet potato now. This is my helper. He just grabbed a couple of those fallen soldiers. After that's all good, just pop them into the oven. They're usually in the oven for about 45 minutes, give or take. The next thing that takes the longest is going to be the brown rice. I use just the traditional long grain brown rice. I think this bag from Whole Foods costs like $5. Rice is definitely one of the most economical meal prep items. So again, I've got 4 servings. Each of my servings is about a 1/4 cup. Just right there. So the rice cooker has made my life about 1,000 times easier. It's super simple. You pour your rice in, make sure you get all of it. Then you just hit the power button, brown rice, and you're off to the races. The next thing that I'm going to do is chop up my beef. Some people don't chop up their beef. To me, it helps it cook a little easier. You can also get more seasoning on it. Just make sure that everything's done. So I will actually go in, especially with this, it's not my typical beef, go in and trim off some of the fat, just minimize as much as possible. I'm not anti-fat, just on this sort of stuff. When it's on the bottom, it can kind of be unpleasant when you're heating it up and eating it throughout the week. After that's done, I'm just going to chop it up into little cubes. It's really great to cut against the grain, especially when you're cutting beef. So like how I'm cutting all of the muscle fibers this way. That's going to allow it to be a little bit more tender, and it's going to really fall apart. This was just over 2 pounds of meat, which I have 8 ounces of meat per meal. So by getting just over 2 pounds, that ensures that when I cut a little bit of that fat off, it's going to be right at 8 ounces. I kind of shop strategically. With that being said, if I know that I'm going to eat 8 ounces per meal and I'm going to meal prep for 4 meals like I'm doing right now, I'll just buy 2 pounds of meat. That way they weigh it for me. I really don't have to worry about weighing and figuring out what's what. When it's all cooked and done, I'll just do my best to visually split it up. I definitely do not worry about getting it down to the gram like some people do. I really like to focus on having a healthy relationship with food, and when I'm playing that balancing game of moving a little bit of sweet potato to one piece of Tupperware to the other, I really just don't feel like that's good for me mentally. So I like to cook around medium-high heat. With this stuff, super simple. Kind of just like throw it in there and add the seasoning as it starts cooking. I don't marinate. I like to just keep it simple and keep it as quick as I can. I'll toss these down here. Might be a little bit more cutting, but these a little bit, I want to be maybe a couple of those. Again, I keep it pretty simple on the seasoning. I'm just going to add some salt, with some garlic, onion powder, and some black pepper. If you don't have any spices, getting spices is definitely an investment at first, but they will last you forever. I think that black pepper was just a couple dollars at Costco. I think I've had it for going on a year and a half now. So again, I really try to make this as efficient as possible. While I have one beef cooking, I'll actually put the second one in as well. And we're going to do the same thing with it. Having a nice set of cooking scissors is something that is extremely underrated. I'll kind of just stir, make sure that everything's getting done evenly. You might say that's a ton of salt, Colby. I actually did a nutritional deficiency test, and I was deficient in sodium. Just with as much as I work out, as much as I sweat, and eating like this, really, even if you just salt the ever-living crap out of your food, it's not even going to come close to how much sodium is in something like McDonald's, or even like a soda pop that a lot of people drink. So with the hamburger, I really just chop it up. This helps it get done evenly. So this is kind of what we got going on as far as that meat cooking. Like I said, I turned it down a little bit. It's cooking pretty fast, but this guy's still on medium-high. We kind of just let everything brown really nicely. You definitely don't want to cook anything too much, because then it's tough and it's not great to reheat. But more importantly, you want to make sure that it's cooked thoroughly. You there? So something that you do have to do when you're going from cutting up meat to cutting up vegetables is you've got to make sure that you wash your cutting board in between. You don't want to get all of those meat germs onto your fresh vegetables. But now I'm just going to cut up some onions. for that salad. Again, it's great to have a plan going into cutting up an onion, right? So I like to have it on each half, and then I'll kind of dice this guy, make kind of close longitudinal cuts. Right, and you want to be really careful with knives, guys. Keeping this guy together like this, though, allows you just really go quick on dicing an onion. So I'm dicing this onion, still cooking. You know what line that is. Same thing with this. Put it in that. Cutting that onion up kind of just goes to show you how tough I am. Didn't cry at all. We're finishing up on both these beefs. This beef looks like it's getting close. I don't typically double up on beef like this, but recently I've been getting a little sick of chicken, so just trying to mix things up. When I talk about like your long-term diet, I ate chicken breast and rice and peas for about 4 years, and that was pretty much the only thing that I ate. Got really burnt out on chicken, so when I've been eating it now, I'll go for a couple weeks on chicken, and then I'll switch it up and do like a double beef. It just helps me stay on my diet much better than just trying to choke chicken down. So as far as the rest of the salad goes, I've got this 50-50 blend, and then I actually am doing this Greek avocado oil primal kitchen dressing. With this dressing though, guys, you got to make sure that you don't overdo it. The 2 tablespoons is 16 grams of fat. Obviously keep your fat consumption in line with what your macronutrient suggestions are. So as far as Tupperware goes, I use these Rubbermaid Brilliance Tupperware containers. They are a little bit more on the expensive side. I think they're about $5 per container. But I've had these going on 18 months now. So I put absolutely everything in these Rubbermaid Brilliance Tupperware containers. I will not prepare the salad all at once. I'll kind of just put these toppings on it as I go throughout the week. So I'll leave that big 50-50 blend sealed. When it comes to dinner time, dinner's always at my house. So I'll just grab that 50-50 blend, grab about 1/4 of it, put some of these onions and bell peppers on top, and top it with a little bit of dressing, and have that alongside my brown rice and beef. What I'll do now is I just take the meat and I will just estimate about how much goes in each one. So I've got 4 meals, right? I cooked about 2 pounds, 32 ounces, divided by 4 equals 8 ounces per meal. 8 ounces per meal is what I'm supposed to have. One day might have a little bit more than the other day, but it's going to even out over the course of the week. And the differences between any of these are not going to be more than 5% different. If your activity level is that consistent and you need to get everything down to the gram, or if you're like prepping for a huge bodybuilding show, you can obviously weigh it down to the gram. For the purpose of general health and fitness, I think just dividing up like that is absolutely fine. I do the exact same thing with the ground beef. And we got our helper down there, grabbing some of that ground beef that fell. Dumped all of the ground beef into my meal prep containers. The last thing I've got to do is the broccoli. We're going to throw the broccoli in. It's all going to the same place, so I don't worry about washing the dish out. Always meal prepping with me. Always waiting for snacks. I don't do anything too crazy with the broccoli, just really cook it enough to get it defrosted. 3 minutes left on the rice cooker. The sweet potatoes are just about done as well. So the only thing that we have left, guys, we've got the rice that's finishing up in the rice cooker. We're gonna plop that in with the beef. So our rice is done now. It just got done, just popped out of the rice cooker. The rice cooker for me takes all the guesswork out of rice, but with the rice I'll do the same thing as everything else. Kind of just eyeball it, throw some into each of these little containers. So here's the fun part, making sure that you're really proud of your work. So that beef and the rice goes with the salad, right? So this is exactly why we started these sweet potatoes first. Everything else is done. We're just waiting on the sweet potatoes. They've probably got about 5 minutes left. So these sweet potatoes are looking like they're done. It's the same thing as everything else. We're just roughly dividing it up. We're going to pop the top on the rest of these. So that's it, guys. That's how quick. It took about an hour and 10 minutes all in, cooking everything, getting an entire, I guess I only prepped for 4 days, 4 days worth of lunch and dinner done in about an hour and 15 minutes. Super easy. Didn't have to extensively weigh or measure anything. I think the only thing that I actually weighed and measured was the sweet potatoes, making sure that I had the right amount there. So he gets all the leftover scraps, because look at that face. You can't say no to that face.